Hey, everybody, this is Harvey Sluggo Wasserman back with another. This is number 52 of the Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition. We are really stacked up with content today, as always. We are engineered, as always, by Mike Hirsch with Steve Caruso, co-convened by the great Joel Siegel. Good to see Bob Fitrakis back on with us. Good to see all of your smiling faces. We're starting out with 60 people. It's great to have everybody with us after well over a year. This is being broadcast at the Pacific Radio, the Progressive Radio Network. We'll talk a little bit about the Pacifica Radio Network as well. Progressive Radio Network, this is on Thursday evening at 5 p.m. Eastern time at the Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition call. It's wonderful to see Howie Hawkins, and Howie will be presenting later in the call his 4 suggestions for a voter's Bill of Rights. We are going to start today with a report from Ray MCCLENDON in Atlanta, the political director of the Atlanta NAACP, on progress on the Georgia Miracle Project. I won't say more about that. Then we're going to go with Joel and with Charles Moreland on the project for the big march, the Dream March in DC, August 28th and 9th for DC Statehood, green jobs and justice, which will include, of course, voter rights. And we're going to talk then about the project of drafting our own voter Bill of Rights, which is going to be hopefully stay with us for the next century or two to make sure that the vote is protected. And then we're also going to talk at around 6 o'clock Eastern time with Ray LUTZ, JOHN BRAKEY, and others about the ongoing mess in Arizona. I'm going to add also, Brian Steinberg is with us. We're going to talk about what's happened in Michigan, where we have won a major victory over gerrymandering, but the whole process in Michigan, as elsewhere, of course, is being, shall we say, RATF-D by the census and the delay in the census, which is obviously not accidental. We're joined by Anna Georgie. Anna came up with in Western Mass, there is an article which may be the first in the paper announcing or describing the march in DC. And Anna, if you'll jump in when we get to that, it would be great to hear from you. So, and also Jennifer Roberts is with us. Jennifer, hopefully you can stay with us long enough to talk. A former 2-term mayor of Charlotte, talk to us about some ideas on the Voter Bill of Rights as well. So when we get to the Voter Bill of Rights discussion, if you will think about drafting a sentence or two to put in the chat about what might be included in the Voter Bill of Rights. And Steve Spitz is with us as well, my fellow Michigan alum, to talk to us about stuff like that. I am wearing my Colin Kaepernick shirt today. I am part owner of the Green Bay Packers. They're having a real spat with my favorite quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, and they're still refusing to give Colin Kaepernick a tryout, which is completely outrageous to me. They're trying out all these other quarterbacks, and they have not offered a tryout to Colin Kaepernick, which is absolutely ridiculous and unconscionable, but we won't go much further than that. So a full agenda for everybody. We will go till 6:40 Eastern time being recorded, and then we'll go another 20 minutes without the recording, and you can vent your 4-letter words however you want. During the recording, though, we are allowed actually to say whatever we want on PRN, but a number of other stations, especially in Pacifica, pick up this broadcast. So, and they would have to go in and fish out the swear words. So we'll keep it clean until 6:40. And anything else anybody wants to add to the agenda, put it in the chat. I do want to ask. Oh, someone said yes to that.
Yes. I'd asked for 5 minutes to talk about the January 6th commission.
Oh, okay, that's fine. We'll do that after the reports on the DC March and the Georgia March, but before the voting Bill of Rights. I do want to ask everyone, there were major news reports that the Republican Party in Arizona is claiming that many ballots were stolen from the treasure trove of ballots, which have to be maintained under federal law for 20 months, but that they were chopped up and fed to chickens, and then the chickens were incinerated. Now I could not make that up. So I wonder if anyone here on the call has eaten one of the Arizona chickens that was fed the ballots. I'm sorry, I just couldn't resist that. I mean, and it's been in all the media. I mean, I saw it mentioned today on CNN, for God's sakes. So there you go.
I don't want to I don't want to argue with you, but I did send you an email last night, and anybody who takes offense to this, actually, they were given to a high school, middle school of prepubescent girls to stuff in their trainer bras.
All right. Well, I couldn't, being a guy, I couldn't go there, but thank you.
Betting or padding, it's all the same.
Yes. Thank you for clarifying that. I do admit to my mistake. So we won't go there further. Ray McClendon, political director of the Atlanta NAACP, one of our great rock stars here, and certainly a tremendous part of the Georgia Miracle. You are in the middle of a major project on the Georgia Miracle, which I have been very diligent in not mentioning until you came on. So what would you like to tell us about what's going on with the Georgia Miracle project?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thanks to the efforts of folks like you, Harvey, Steve Rosenfeld, and especially to Joel Siegel. We have been able to pull together the Georgia Miracle, which everybody has been contacting us from around the country saying, you know, it was a miracle that happened in Georgia. How do we chronicle that and then replicate what was done in Georgia in other states? So the first thing we thought about doing was we need to chronicle this for history of what happened in the general election in 2020, and then in the January 5th runoff. And then we need to take that information not only for history, but we also need to have it as a teaching tool for other battleground states to be able to use and add their own innovation to it to be successful in their municipal elections this year, but more importantly for 2022 and beyond. So I'm very happy to say that we have been able to put together a little over 8 hours of video content from a variety of the grassroots warriors on the ground who were part of this amazing relational organizing strategy around the state of Georgia to really put forth the details of what it took to put together a relational organizing strategy. And what do we mean by that? We're talking about collaboration, communication, and coordination of many like-minded groups in the various communities. There are 159 counties in Georgia, and we were able to touch each and every one of them, and especially those that had significant minority populations and minority voter pools. So what we've done is now taken those practical steps that all of the various groups took and put that content together. And then we want to give thanks to Harvey and to Steve for agreeing that they're going to write a book about from these interviews, these live interviews that we've taken. And then we're also looking to do a documentary off of that. We would not be at this point now if it were not for Mike Hirsch. Mike has been extraordinary in coordinating all of these different interviews with folks from around the state of Georgia. I want to personally thank Mike for all of his work. And I know he's normally a behind the scenes guy, but I want to ask Mike if he would just take a moment and give his impression, because he's been on all of these calls, all of these Zoom interviews that we have had and give his perspective on what we've been able to do.
Well, thanks, Ray, and I appreciate the kind words. I just want to shout out Ray is doing an absolutely amazing job with these interviews. He's picking out who he wants to interview. He's bringing them in together. He and I work together to make sure that they show up and do all, provide their input. And these interviews have been eye-opening for me. It shows that, there's a coming together of a lot of different groups that known each other, but didn't really work together closely up until this time. And the Georgia Miracle, the secret ingredient to that was hard work, people respecting each other, people using relationships that they put together over decades in some instances, and sometimes in just a matter of days, coming together in a rapid way to coordinate, make sure that there wasn't a duplication of effort, and to share good ideas and help implement strategies. And none of it would have happened without the people putting their ego aside, focusing on a common goal, and just working, their tails off to make sure it happened, and everybody being accountable to each other. It's a very inspirational story. I can't wait for everybody to see the documentary and read the book and articles.
So you're proceeding to you're recording Zoom interviews with people who are at the heart of the organizing, and then the idea is to transcribe the interviews for the book, and then also to make to turn them into a documentary film. Is that the basic idea?
That's the basic idea. So we'll have another week and a half of interviews for another 6 to 8 hours of additional content. Then we'll begin the transcription process, the editing process, and then turn it over to you guys to begin to figure out how to narrate the story to be presented. Concurrent with that, Mike and Joel and others will be working to begin putting together some what I call trailers, which will be talking about, giving some snippets of what we are pulling together to begin to build interest in what is to come, and allow us to begin to market and message what it is that will come out of the Georgia Miracle, and let folks know this will be coming sometime early summer.
So the film will be ready for this year's Oscars, I hope.
Well, that depends on you and Steve, Harvey. I'm depending on you and Steve and Joel to use your contacts. We also have Andrea Miller, who did an extraordinary set of interviews. She has some great contacts in California and Hollywood. So we're looking for all of those relationships to come together to help us transform significant documentary.
Fantastic. Gloria Tanubu, you're a part of this. Did you want to comment? Gloria, did I catch you by surprise?
I think Ray has covered, the matter very well. I won't start my interviews until next week. So he's been, carrying the brunt of this so far.
Okay.
So good job, Ray.
Sounds fantastic. Does anyone want to comment or ask questions about this? There was a request for your contacts, Ray, from Don Jones. If you want to post your contacts to him or to the whole group, if anyone has people that they think might be a good interview for this project, or wants to contribute to the writing or the producing of the film, you're more than welcome. The more the merrier, as far as I'm concerned. So Ray, you've got that request from Don Jones for your contacts there. Does anyone want to comment on this? The Georgia Miracle is going to be one of the great remembered as one of the great historic events, especially if we somehow manage to preserve our democracy in the face of all these attacks.
And that's a great point, Harvey. Let me respond to that. The whole point of this is what you just hit on, that if we are to save democracy, then we must ensure that all voices are heard and that free and fair elections will be the critical cornerstone of democracy for years to come. So this is important work now related to what happened in 2020 and the runoff in 2021. But the point of putting all of this together is that we need to continue to fight in the same way that Georgia fought during the election. We need to fight in order to save democracy going forward. So this is a foundational component of what you're going to be hearing even more about, not just on the Georgia Miracle, but on some of the components that we use to save our democracy.
Well, Rebecca Landau has said that when we have a real ready, that she has Hollywood contacts, and of course, Kat Kramer is a major player in Hollywood. So we need to get you in contact with them. If you'll send them your contacts in the chat, that would be really good. James Fukuda is one of our primary executive producers, and we have two-time Oscar winner Joel Siegel wanting to make a comment here. Joel, what do you got?
Well, I mean, you know, to have Ray and Gloria, two of the most important leaders in this movement about the Georgia Miracle, is very rare. The reason why this is so important, I was watching MSNBC this morning, MSNBC. I don't know why I watch Morning Joe, but I watch it to keep current. And so one of the pundits said, we all know that the House is going to turn Republican in the midterms. Wow. There's this a prognostication by MSNBC that we all know that the House is going to turn Republican in the midterms. Now, the Republicans that are going to get in, for the most part, either going to be Trump Republicans or fascist Republicans. What Ray and Gloria and Mike and Steve and everyone else are doing is very important, because if we can teach the Georgia model to the other swing states, and we get a dramatic increase in the Black vote, the Hispanic vote, communities of color, and students, then the narrative of, oh, the Republicans are going to win the House is sort of remains in question, because Georgia showed that if you do a GOTV based on relational organizing, then Democrats can win. But if people in the swing states do not know what happened in Georgia, it'll be hard for that effort to happen. So that's why the book is very important. And that's why the documentary is very important. I am not asking this group for any money, because there's an agreement not to do so. If any of you know donors who can help fund this project, it's called the Blue Green Project. Many times as the chair, I'm on the board. I've asked Jan Goodman from Pacifica to be on the board. We need to raise money, because the money will go to the project to get the book done, the movie. And I'll conclude by saying that we cannot, the Black community and the Hispanic community cannot wait for the Democratic Party to fund local grassroots mobilizing. They don't do that. They fund campaign commercials. We want to go ahead and fund our own grassroots activities. But anyway, that's it.
All right. And I want to point out, by the way, there was a speech, I'm sure many of you saw it. There's this, thank you for that, Joel. There's a group called the Heritage Something, and they were taking credit. Actually, a youngish woman was taking credit for drafting all of the laws that are going out there now to suppress the vote.
Heritage Foundation.
Some of you have seen it and could post the link in the chat. It was quite devastating. Actually, there was a piece, I put it in the notice for this meeting at the bottom. There's a link to an article written by Steve Rosenfeld, but there's also a link to an article written by Ari Berman for Mother Jones, and embedded in that article is the video of the speech at this group, Heritage something. They're obviously linked to the Heritage Foundation, about how they drafted all the voter suppression legislation, which has sailed through. She was actually bragging about how easy and smooth it's all gone to get these voter suppression bills passed by the state legislatures. So if you're interested in that, click at the bottom of the notice that I sent through MailChimp and look at the Ari Berman piece, and you'll see where the origin of all these voter suppression bills is located.
It's in
And
the
this, of
chat.
course, we'll have to deal with in the Georgia speech. Ray, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one further thing, and you know, we are the cornerstones of what we do at the Atlanta NAACP and for political action relate to voter registration, education, and mobilization. Education is going to be absolutely critical over the next 12 to 18 months, and it's critical across all of these states. And so this effort that we have now is fundamental to that process, both for how we can organize in different battleground states and how we can confront head on these voter suppression bills. We also have to be mindful of what's going on, though, with these lawsuits and these illegitimate, what are being called audits, but they're basically fraudulent attempts to undermine the democratic process around the country, which we've seen going on in Maricopa County in Arizona. Many of you will note that a judge recently allowed for discovery to go forward on a lawsuit in Georgia, which is going to bring into question all of Fulton County's absentee ballots from with similar tactics. We know this is part of their national game plan, and it's going to continue in other states. And it doesn't matter. The challenge we have is that it doesn't matter what the result is. What matters is that they can continue to press this issue and fundraise off of it, and then utilize that fundraising for ultimate ballot initiatives and support for like-minded candidates. So we've got to be relentless on the other side and make sure that we are galvanizing our voters to respond to this, to be informed both in the process for democracy, and then to be prepared to respond with our voices being heard at the polls. That starts now. We're already in the fight here in Fulton County. You'll be hearing more about this after we get results from a hearing that will be on likely on May 28th. But this is only going to continue, and Georgia will continue to be on the front line of this, and we will continue to need your support.
Fantastic. Okay, so anybody wants to get in touch with Ray, contact him here through the chat. Ray, you're following the chat, right? Does anyone else want to speak on the Georgia Miracle Project before we move ahead? I do want to remind people next week is Memorial Day. Our next meeting will be June 7th, which happens to be my wife's birthday. She'll be turning 21. So you can all join, wish her a toast on that one. Ray, are you good? Should we move on? Is there anything else you want to add?
I'm good. Thanks.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Ray, it's a magnificent project. I'm proud to be a part of it. And thank you for moving with it with Mike and then Joel and the whole crew here. Okay, let's turn to Washington, D.C. now. The upcoming gathering, August 28th and 9th, Dream Gathering, spearheaded by the great Charles Moreland. Charles, I see you're in the front of the Soweto Church there with the Free DC yard sign. And what's the latest?
Well, first, I want to thank you, Harvey, and Joel, and
and Ray, Mike, the Georgia Miracle Organization, the National Election Protection Coalition, Progressive Democrats of America, People Demanding Action, and everybody for supporting our efforts to become the 51st state. The Douglas Commonwealth Coalition is leading the effort to organize the Dream March on Washington for green jobs, for statehood, green jobs, and justice. The Douglas Commonwealth Coalition is composed of current and former members of Washington, D.C.'s congressional delegation and organizations and individuals who support DC statehood. We are honored today to have Representative Odeye Owoliwa. He spoke to you earlier. He is the first American Nigerian elected to Congress. So I want to introduce him and present him. Odeye. Oye. You want to tell them a little bit about yourself and what you're doing? I think you're muted, Oye.
There we go. I asked you to unmute.
Can you
And I
hear
see your- he may not be, he may have moved.
Well, while we wait on him, let's hear from Senator Brown.
Senator, go ahead. Floor is yours.
Thanks so much, guys. I, have to say the same thing Charles has just said. Thank you, thank you, thank you for everybody who's involved in our struggle. There's not much to report over the last week since last we met. Things in the Senate staying pretty much the same. As you know, we have a bill that passed the House of Representatives that would make the district the 51st state as of June 24th. I'm sorry, as of April 24th. It was in the Senate. It remains there. We have 46 co-sponsors at this point. There's not a whole lot to report. I see that Stephen Caruso has posted that today 40 constitutional experts sent a letter to the congressional leadership making clear that DC statehood is constitutional. So more momentum is building towards our passage of the bill. Unfortunately, this is basically saber rattling. Every Republican in the United States Senate understands that this is constitutional. This isn't about the Constitution. It's about 2 Democrats. It's about putting 2 more Democrats in the United States Senate. That's all that matters to these guys. So we're in the middle of a fight, but we're getting ramped up for it. We're having a meeting on Thursday with the Park Service to talk about the details of the march in August, and we're here fighting the good fight, and the good news is we're getting momentum.
Fantastic. I wanted to call real quickly on Anna Georgie in Western Mass. I don't know if I've caught you unawares, Anna. You sent me an email mentioning, if I understood right, that there was an article in the Greenfield Recorder that mentioned the march. Is that correct, Anna? Do I have you here?
Yes, I wrote it and it's online and I can put it in the chat, and it's called Time to Dream Again. And it talks about the necessity of putting all of these struggles together and mentions the march. And I am really just so impressed with all the work of all of you. And I think that working on the local level all across the country and internationally to support this march, to have local organizations sponsor people going to DC and then having live broadcasts at home. In other words, I'm really into having this be as big as possible, and small towns like ours and our local area I think would be really responsive to that.
Well, Anna, for your information, is in the Western Massachusetts. Her piece is in the Greenfield Recorder, which is historic. The Greenfield Recorder, just for your obscure reference, was the first community newspaper to publish a major page opposing nuclear power in 1974. So this is historic. And we all, the rest is history. So this is probably the first article that we've had. Anna, thank you for writing it about this march. If you'll give us all the link, that would be wonderful. Do they actually have computers at the Greenfield Recorder, or?
They even have an e-edition.
Oh, there you go. So,
okay.
So send it out. Thank you so much for writing it. That's a wonderful thing to do.
Well, thank you all, and we'll be there, if not in person, then in Greenfield in the town common.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yes, we certainly want to promote that. So, Charles, where do we stand now on the physical realities of organizing this march?
Well, Anna must have been reading our playbook.
She was.
Yeah.
So we have to get
I'm
into
Sluggo's sister.
exactly. There's only one way to do it and do it right, and you have the right idea. Those people that can't come, we live in a marvelous age where we can have Zooms, we can have meetings, and we want to make sure that this effort, we turn out people everywhere, and those people that can't come to Washington, D.C., we're going to organize this in a way that you can have a march in your state capital, or you can have an event at the local bar or in your home. This is an enormous opportunity. In fact, we call the Dream March for DC Statehood, Green Jobs and Justice a 3-issue alliance. Messaging and information from each sponsoring organization or patron. We need to ask individuals to agree to participate in the march. First of all, we're identifying national, state, and local organizations in all 50 states. Okay, and we're going to have our comprehensive plan finished by June 11th. So right now we have an outline for what we call this 3-issue alliance, building a coalition and outreaching to a nonprofit organization is going to be the first step. Once we do that, of course, we're going to invite everybody to participate in weekly briefing sessions. We have them Monday nights at 8 o'clock. And Dr. Don Jones, I want to ask you to post that invite for everybody to see. We had a number of individuals from Progressive Democrats of America, National Election Protection Coalition attend last Monday, so we're very thankful. In fact, we had some great ideas to come out of that. And so we ask everybody to get ready. The great opportunity here is for us to unify opportunity. So we believe that statehood gives us a unique opportunity for green issues and justice issues to all unify under this one banner to support DC statehood. The struggle for DC statehood right now is the most noble liberation cause in America, if not on the planet. Who can agree, who can disagree with ending taxation without representation? That's a fundamental American value. So we're going to organize everybody, people who've never worked together before. And right now we haven't had anybody to refuse to agree to come under this banner. So this is a unique opportunity. We're going to talk a little bit more about how we're going to organize using each organization's demographic targeting to give ideas and momentum to the effort. And of course, when you unify, it makes fundraising easier. It makes organizing easier. And so we're going to build a plan that, you know, lets people know how to build on this unifying opportunity.
Fantastic. Wes, and you and Charles should exchange contacts here. And if you can join the 8 o'clock call tonight, I will be on it tonight. And everybody else, put the link to that 8 o'clock call has just been posted here. That's 8 o'clock Eastern time.
Yeah, Sluggo,
yes,
it
please.
conflicts with alternative radio. Not good.
Oh, all right, well, we'll figure it out. Everything conflicts with everybody. Anna, by the way, is on the board of the Trap Rock Peace Center, one of the great historic peace organizations in the country and certainly in Western Mass.
Thank you.
Former home of Wally and Juanita Nelson. Charles, is there anything more you want to add? Anybody else want to jump in on this great march coming up?
Let me ask people to go on our website, www.douglascommonwealth.us. Dr. Jones, can you please post that up for everybody to see? And let me just let everybody know what Anna has done is awesome. For most organizations, simply by announcing that you support the march can be a boost to our organizing effort. And of course, we're going to want every organization to come up with their particular purpose and method and demonstrate how the 3 issues connect. And that's going to be very important. I think that's what's going to make it grow and include so many different groups and alliances.
Fantastic.
Can I ask a question? Because I'm in DC. And
yes, Art, go ahead, please.
There's some prominent groups like DC Vote and others. Are they involved in this march or formally at this point, or where do they stand on the issue? Michael, Charles, let us know.
Well, I don't know about their involvement. Charles can speak to that, but they're DC, they're statehood supporters. So
no, right. So I'm just trying to know that in the organizing, are you working in the organizing with some existing well-established organizations that also have regular access to the media on statehood? That's what I'm asking.
Yes, we're working with everybody. Let me just quote Senator Brown. It's going to be as easy to get people to speak at this march, especially DC statehood supporters, as it is to get a child to eat ice cream. Everybody will be involved in this. And we have an action plan. We haven't contacted everybody yet, but they're all, one thing I want to say here today, organizations all over DC and all over the country are doing everything they can to support DC statehood. I'm glad to hear that. But our group is a group of individuals who are either current members of the congressional delegation. They are individuals. Voters have reposed special trust and confidence in their integrity and ability to carry out and perform the duties to advance the cause of admitting Douglas Commonwealth as America's 51st state. So our tent includes everybody. We've never been able to totally unify everybody under one umbrella for DC statehood. This group at this time is definitely going to do that.
Okay, one quick follow-up. Are other major civil rights groups like Reverend Barber's Third Reconstruction Movement, are they also holding a separate rally at the same time to commemorate the original August 63? Or what's happening otherwise?
Let me tell you what our plan is. Yes, the National Action Network has the 28th reserved. We're the only group that has the 28th and 29th. We're going to plan, in fact, a Friday self-determination awards banquet Friday. On Saturday, we're working right now. We're talking to members of the leaders of the National Action Network. Our plan is, no matter what happens, certainly we are all going to commemorate that date, but DC is going to have a demonstration for statehood. And ideally, we're going to march down and join them, but we're going to be organizing
Okay,
all over.
just trying to clarify.
We expect that we can bring 200,000 people from Maryland, Virginia, and DC. So everybody, and we're reaching out to them. We want to coordinate, and we're the only group that is holding an event on the 29th also. So we're going to do the 27th, 28th, and 29th. But the National Action Network has already reserved the Lincoln Memorial. We have reserved a space. We got Freedom Plaza, and we have the National Mall. And so DC Statehood will join them no matter what they do, no matter how they do it. So we have all that planned, and hopefully you're going to work with us to help facilitate that.
Sounds great. Sounds really great. Charles, is that it? Does anyone else want to jump in here on this march and DC Statehood? Okay, we also want to mention there is an upcoming referendum on Pacifica, and one of the major players is the DC Pacifica station. Anybody interested in that election and possibly working on election observation? I know Ruth Strauss, you mentioned that. Contact me, solartopia@gmail.com. And this is a big deal election. And of course, our participation with the station in DC will be a big deal. Okay, let's move ahead. Rich PROCIDA, you wanted to say something about the 1-6 coalition commission. Then we're going to talk about the Bill of Rights, and then we're going to go back to Arizona. Okay.
All right. So my name's Rich PROCIDA. I write on religion and politics, and you can find my articles at laprogressive.com, modernelectionaries.blogspot.com. Had one come out in BuzzFeed, or BuzzFlash, excuse me. And I do a podcast called Bible Study for Progressives. So I just want to start here. So we have a divided America needs a truth commission. On January 6, 2021, the capital of the United States was attacked by a mob of pro-Trump extremists who assaulted Capitol police officers and threatened our representatives in an effort to topple the newly elected administration. It was the first violent transition of power since the Civil War. Congress and Vice President Pence were merely doing their duty in overseeing the orderly transfer of power. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, but do you have something specific about the commission?
This is not really to give you additional information, although there is some additional information. The question is the importance of it, and to ask you to call your senators to request that the commission be
well, we're all for that. I guess the House has approved a commission and the Senate has not. And at this point in time, it does not appear there'll be a joint congressional commission, but my understanding is there will be a number of commissions in the House, or at least hearings in the House. Is that correct, Rich?
There'll probably be a select commission if we can't get a bipartisan commission. Commission first. There was news just recently that there's a number of senators who are still on the fence, and more than 10. And so there is a possibility of passing that bipartisan commission. And I think it's very, very important for us to fight for that, be persuasive, get out there and tell people why we need this. I mean, if we don't want this to happen again, if we, then we've got to, America is divided.
Yeah.
And they live in different realities. So we need a truth commission in order to clear that up for people.
Okay, I agree with that. If you can put in the chat the list of senators who may be on the fence, that would be of interest. I did see a discussion with the woman from Maine, Susan, whatever her name is, I forget her name, Collins. Susan Collins was on the fence, but according to CNN, she's about the only Republican on the fence. But I'm sure that there will be commissions coming out of the House. Does anyone else? Thank you for that, Rich. Thank you for bringing it up. Does anyone else want to comment on the possibility of a truth commission? I think that's a good phrase, Rich, on the 6-1. Okay, or rather 1-6. That we'll
This is
follow that
Justin LeBlanc.
closely. What's that?
So as a computer programmer who's used to dealing with systems, I was thinking that a lot of this sort of stuff is driven by Facebook, 4chan, social media channels, and the big deal behind people's misinformation comes in the form of free amplification. The more numbers of people see something, the more numbers of people are going to see something. And these platforms are making recommendations of misinformation. What we really need is to stop that amplification. And then when Republicans complain about, oh, well, you know, censorship, well, you're also getting free. And so you can't, you know, claim the benefits and then disclaim the reward or the
Okay.
downsides.
All right. Okay, that's a good point.
I think
Does
there's
anyone?
one thing to say about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
real quick.
Hi, Arthur. It's that this is not just social media. This is major media networks, national politicians, international leaders who are involved in disseminating and spreading false propaganda, black propaganda, gray propaganda, and the news media reporting falsehoods is not acceptable. It's not acceptable.
Okay. We agree with that. Absolutely. I will say that on CNN, there was a subline when they were talking about the voting on whether there would be a joint commission, that the Congress had multiple joint commissions on Benghazi and other nonsense, and they don't seem to want to do it on this. Art Levine, and then we want to move to Jennifer Roberts and Howie Hawkins and Stephen Spitz and others on.
Yeah, I just
rights.
want to mention there's a resource group of excellent experts on social media, and they're known as the Real Facebook Oversight Board. And they're leading academics and researchers about the dangers and how to reform and change. And they talk a lot about, you know, the algorithms, Section 230. And because they're quite well-known people involved, Lawrence Lessig, others, and Lawrence, really big deals in academia, journalism, and so on. For those seeking these kind of reforms, it's worth familiarizing yourselves with their work. And I'll post again my Medium article where I look at the best overviews on this kind of extremism that is putting a block to forming what Rich is talking about and the January 6th Commission. But as a journalist myself, I'll point out is the amplification is important because it's amplifying. It's a circular process of mainstream publications and right-wing mainstream amplifying what's coming up from the far right and social media, and they in turn amplifying them. It's a kind of reinforcing synergy of credibility, fomenting outrageous conspiracy beliefs that led to the insurrection and are fueling in my view, the Arizona audit. So I'll post that for your info.
Excellent. I know John and Ray, you're waiting to talk about Arizona, but I'd like to put that towards the end because once we get going on Arizona, we're not going to stop. And we will also be talking about Michigan today and what the census, the delayed census, has done to our attempts to change gerrymandering. So please stick with us. Charles, do you have a hand before we jump into the Voter Bill of Rights?
Yes, Harvey, I left out our U.S. representative when we called on him. He was gone. Oh yeah, are you back?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Okay.
Harvey,
yeah, go ahead, and then we'll go to Jennifer Roberts.
Absolutely, and thank you so much, Charles, for calling back on me. My name is Dr. Oye Owolewa. I'm the U.S. representative of Washington, D.C. I'm extremely excited to take part in the rally. I think people, especially the Republicans, are painting D.C. Statehood as a Democratic issue. And I think we have to really lean on that. We have to talk to folks on how us being included in Congress really affects the way we pass our progressive policy. That if you have two more progressive senators in Congress, then our bills and our national policy won't depend on Joe Manchin's and Krista Sinema's thumbs up. So we have to really showcase what DC statehood not only means for us in the nation's capital, but also folks around the country. So I don't want to take too much time, but if we really paint the picture of how our statehood impacts every single American, I think that also makes a compelling case.
Excellent, thank you. And of course, we want to emphasize that it's both a capital D Democratic Party issue, but of course, more importantly, a small d democracy issue. So there you've got it. Okay, Jennifer Roberts, are you still with us? Jennifer? Did you have to move on, Jennifer
Nope,
Roberts?
nope, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, with you and then Howie Hawkins. What I want to do here is start the process, and I think Steve Spitz is going to jump in as well, of drafting a voter bill of rights. As Andrea Miller pointed out, there is a voter bill of rights in Virginia that was passed by the assembly there. And what we want to do is start collecting points that we can put into a voter bill of rights. And you were suggesting you had some ideas, and Howie says he's got 4, and Steve Spitz will join us as well. So Jennifer Roberts, a 2-term former mayor of Chicago, Charlotte.
It's that CH factor.
There you go. What do you got?
People get Chapel Hill, Charlotte, Charlottesville, Charleston. They get them all mixed up. So don't worry. We're happy to be in the same sentence with Chicago. So I look forward to hearing Howie's presentation as well. I haven't really prepared remarks, but I do know that North Carolina is at the center of voter suppression and gerrymandering. If folks know, we've had our district lines thrown out by the courts, I think 3 or 4 times because of targeting Black and brown voters with surgical precision. And so we also have the case of a delayed census. We're not going to get those figures for local elections until probably September, which means we have a whole set of elections that are going to be suspended for a year. All our local elections are going to happen in 2022 instead of 2021. So we've got a very interesting situation going on, but we've had voter suppression bills as well. And my concern, they're targeting absentee voting. And we have a strong military presence in North Carolina. Much of our absentee voting has been from overseas, from military, but also from seniors and people with disabilities. So I'm very concerned. I know that a number of the bills are in court, but we also read that a number of the appellate courts now are majority GOP and many Trump-appointed judges. And so, we really need to continue to raise awareness, absentee voting for people who are worried about their health and safety, for people with disability, people who are going to be downtown during early voting time, et cetera. We absolutely need to preserve it. We also have an issue with voter ID. Our voter ID law was struck down because they actually caught the Republicans who are crafting the bill asking this question: which documents do Black voters have the least of? That's how they decided to use driver's licenses. Who don't have driver's license, most of them are Black and brown, but they actually asked that question. The courts found it and threw out that voter ID, but it's still in the courts, and we worry even if they expand the number of IDs you can use, that it's going to come back in some form. So I don't have my list of the 3 or 4 things, but I just wanted to paint a picture for people of how open and nasty it can get and how overtly discriminatory. And it's all about cheating to win. And Joel, of course, has his hand raised, and I'm sure he can add to that as well.
Yes, and I want to say, Steve Caruso, if you're getting a heads up, what I'd like is for everyone to send your ideas to the vote for the voter bill of rights, either points or general ideas, to Steve at the website, so we can open a portal that will be devoted just to this drafting of this general bill of rights, which we can proceed with over the coming weeks. Thank you, Jennifer, for that. Howie, you mentioned that in an email to me that you had 4 points. You want to start talking about them? Tell us what they are that could go into the voter bill of rights, and then we'll go to anyone else. Howie?
Sure. There are 4 rights and 4 corresponding pieces of legislation. And 3 of them are about having the right to vote for who you want once you get in the polling booth, which is a big problem in this country because of ballot access and single member plurality voting. In a lot of ways, we're like a dictatorship where, like Boss Tweed used to say, you can vote for anybody you want as long as I get to pick the candidates. But the first right is simply the right to vote. In Bush v. Gore, those conservative justices pointed out that the individual citizen has no federal constitutional right to vote. So we need that put in the Constitution so Congress is empowered to implement that right, and the courts are required to enforce it when we pass things like the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. We just need that stronger constitutional basis. So that's to get us into the voting booth. But how do the candidates get on the ballot? The US is off the charts in difficulty. Just take the House of Representatives. In many states, it takes thousands or tens of thousands of signatures for an independent or new party candidate to get on the ballot to run for the House. In the UK, you want to run for the House of Commons, it's 10 signatures. You want to run for Parliament as an independent in New Zealand, 2 signatures. 50 signatures for the House of Representatives in Australia, 100 for the Parliament in Canada. But here it's thousands or tens of thousands of signatures. So the legislation is something that John Conyers introduced in the late 80s and carried until the 119th Congress, 1999. And it sets reasonable maximum thresholds for ballot petition signatures and then the vote you need to get the party ballot status with a statewide election. So that's the second one. The third one is the right to proportional representation. What we have now with single member winner take all districts is the plurality winner gets all the representation and everybody else gets none. And of course that affects third parties like the Greens, but it also affects you if you're a Democrat in a Republican district or Republican in a Democratic district. And the experts on this thing say 90% of House seats and 95% of state legislative seats are effectively one-party dictatorships. They're not competitive. It doesn't matter who you vote or whether you vote because the result is built into these single member districts where one party has the majority. So the remedy for that at the House level is proportional representation. Ranked choice voting for multi-member districts creates proportional representation of all political viewpoints. It renders gerrymandering impossible because if you have single member districts, you can draw the lines to do partisan gerrymandering. But if it's multi-member districts where everybody gets their fair share and proportional share of representation, doesn't matter how you draw the lines. So there's a Fair Representation Act that's been introduced in the Congress that would do that. And then the fourth one, and this is innovative because it hasn't been introduced, but there is a draft bill, and it's about the right to elect. I mean, our electoral college has made a farce out of our presidential elections. Since 1824, when they started counting the popular vote, 19 of 50 elections have resulted in a plurality winner, not a majority winner. And 5 of those, the person that came in second became the president. So we end up with clowns like Trump. And people think, well, you got to do a constitutional amendment to get rid of the electoral college. That's one way. But this new idea under Article 2, Sections 1 and 4 in the 12th Amendment, Congress has the right to regulate presidential elections. And they could basically render the electoral college, basically dictate to it that it would have to put the winner of a ranked choice national popular vote in the presidency. And that is coming out in a law review article, Harvard Law and Policy Review, and the draft legislation and a 60-page discussion of it. So it's just, this is a new idea, but it's a politically easier way to get rid of this farcical electoral college than trying to get an amendment passed throughout the states. That's a long process. So those are the 4 ideas.
Wow, fantastic.
And
All right,
yeah,
well, listen, let's conclude with that on the recorded session, and we can continue
okay.
for another 20 minutes. Ray, is that good with you?
Yeah, I think there's still probably people have some questions about all these audits.
Yes, well, let's do it. Thanks again. We'll continue. I'm not going anywhere. We go another 20 minutes to 7 o'clock Eastern. This has been another fantastic call. We still have 52 people with us. And Ray, John, Jeffrey Barkdale, thank you so much. And let's keep on going here. You can turn off the recording, and you are now all officially